right, hello. We're at episode 4 of Parallel World Pharmacy. Just a quick recap. Our protagonist, Farma, the Medicis, has successfully treated the Empress for her disease. And the beginning of this episode, like first couple minutes, was him and his father kind of hypothesizing about what could have caused her illness and whether it may have been like a malicious attack or something like that. Well, it is possible to, maliciously infect people with certain things. In this world, I doubt you would be able to successfully have an attack vector unless you yourself, unless it was like magic or someone else had the same kind of knowledge that Farmer has about modern medicine. So I passed by that bit because it's a little bit more story focused. There was a little bit maybe about like the transmission of disease and things like that, but it's not really my specialty. So I moved past that. Now obviously, because he's rendered great services to the kingdom, he is expected to receive a reward, Farmer that is. And so the Empress's second son, I think, or maybe like a cousin or something, I can't remember, some noble child is pulling Farmer aside and giving him the side eye about what you want for your reward. So we'll start from there.
話、お前何に興味ある？金か？爵位か？領地か？
そんな、俺領地とかはいらない。
バカ！貴族なんだからガツガツ取りに行けよ。
そんなこと言われても。
一つくらいあるだろ。将来の目標とか言ってみろよ。誰にも言わないからさ。な。
将来。
Oh, and for reference, this is several months into her treatment. So it's been like 3 months. So she hasn't completely finished her TB course, but she's halfway through and she should be fine.
それなら俺は薬局を開くことかな。
は？
平民貴族の区別なく、どんな人にも安くて安全な薬を提供できる。そんな薬局。
So, ostensibly, that is the mission statement of any pharmacy, really. At least in Australia, and that's kind of similar to what Pharmacist's mission statement is supposed to be. In all of our kind of, in all of our institutions and organizations, we aspire to always be able to provide safe and efficacious medications to, our people. In my case, other Australians. So that particular dream, not a massive surprise to maybe a modern audience, at least as far as places like Australia and the UK and Europe and things like that, where there is socialized healthcare, where it is possible to, through the power of government spending and basically the pooling of resources to ensure that we reach economies of scale for these medications to make them cheap and safe and efficacious for everybody to be able to access. So yeah, not that different in a modern context. In older times, sort of like all the way back through 1900s, 1815, 1400s, whatever you want to call it, the provision of medication has always been sort of fraught with danger and uncertainty. It's always been very hard to really be sure what worked and what didn't. And it usually came down to trial and error and word of mouth and things like that. And those who were proven to be able to provide safer medications and medications that were more likely to work often charged through the nose for it, right? And as we kept going up through the years, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 2000s, the profession, the pharmacist profession, gradually gained more and more prestige as it became more obvious that pharmacists actually played a very big role in people's recovery from illnesses and things like that, and not just doctors who are the main medical professionals up until that point, or nurses, for example. Because pharmacists had that knowledge of compounding medications, or in earlier, like yesteryear, there would have been compounding herbs and other medicinal things in order to produce the desired effect. And pharmacists were extremely important for that. Nowadays, pharmacists don't necessarily make medications as much, obviously, so it really depends what country you're in terms of how pharmacists are remunerated and treated in society. Generally, pharmacists are okay. Certainly in some developed countries, retail pharmacy has lost a little bit of its luster. But hospital pharmacy and research, there's definitely still a big need for pharmacists and things like that. So, yeah, I think that's a discussion for another day. But Farmer's dream of, building a pharmacy where, everyday people can access safe and efficacious medications is perfectly fine. I just wonder what happened to finding a cure for his little sister's thingamajig illness or whatever it was. I don't think we ever found out. I think maybe it was like a tumor or something. I can't remember. I think he said something about it in the first episode. But clearly after spending, a decent amount of time in this isekai, he's obviously adjusted quite a bit to it. So now he's with the patient.
謙遜せずともよい。新薬は事実聞いているだろう。世の体は日々回復しているのだからな。
今日までは。しかし明日どうなるかはわからないのが人と薬でございます。
うん。どんな薬にも絶対はないということか。G 団の前で大演説をぶったそなたらしくはないが。
Yeah, there are definitely 99% this medication will work type situations. But, people can come and go, like improve and deteriorate very rapidly depending on the illness. Obviously, for less serious things, it's pretty much like 100% yes, you will get better. Even without intervention sometimes. So, and especially in this instance where he was treating tuberculosis in a time period where we are assuming that they don't have any concept of antibiotics or germs or things like that, it was pretty much guaranteed to at least improve the situation. If she was too far gone, then it would have been already fairly obvious. So I think it was almost like a guarantee. I mean, he is correct in that, you can't always tell what will happen. People's bodies are all different and react differently to different things. And sometimes it's just life, right? You can do everything right and still come up short and fail, right? Thank you, Captain Picard. This particular interaction with the patient as well is always very important to keep up to date with the patient's condition, provide some sort of comfort and, someone to talk to, especially in a hospital situation where probably they haven't had that much human interaction. So, it shows you care and talking to the patient is often a good idea. As well as, providing words of comfort and hope and things like that. It is very surprising how much just a person's self-esteem and willpower to live can affect their chances of survival or their chances of recovery. So, never underestimate the power of the mind. Is basically what I would say. And even, like, the placebo effect even comes into that, right? For example, there are a lot of cold and flu medications out there for children that may not necessarily be proven to be effective. They're not, like, necessarily outright medicinal drugs, for example. They might be more like herbal preparations and things like that. And some people have been complaining, I suppose, that pharmacists are kind of like, or retail pharmacists are kind of lying to customers because they feel like they're not providing, like a good service or something like that. And to that, I would say the placebo effect is a very strong thing, especially for children and even adults. The very fact that you can shove something in their mouth that tastes, kind of yucky, and be like, look, you've taken your medicine, go to sleep. And even though it may not necessarily do something, intellectually, at least on a kind of on a mind level, they're sort of tricked into believing that, they will be cured. And that kind of, help for a parent who's, really stressed out is important for both child and parent. Because it is reassuring that they've done something about it, even if it's not necessarily proven to do anything. So yeah, the power of words and the mental game, the mental game, like I'm talking about it like it's some sort of like sport or something, but the mental game of medicine and recovery is very important. Keeping a positive outlook, and always, reassuring the patient that you're trying to do everything you can, but tempering it with the, truth of the situation. You should never lie when you know that the odds aren't in their favor or things like that. You should give a realistic outlook, but you should always try to frame it in a more positive light than necessarily like, oh, you're guaranteed to die, good luck, kind of thing, right? You don't want to push them into that corner. So yeah. Okay, so we've moved on a little bit from that. Pretty much the rest of that patient interaction was him reassuring the Empress that, she's still an important person in a lot of people's lives, and especially personally, and sort of continuing to reinforce that patient well-being, both physically and mentally, because patients' outlook on life really affects how they recover. Since then, it's been several months after that, so presumably after the 6 month tuberculosis treatment course, and now we're at the reward ceremony, I suppose, is something you could say about it. His dad got, some territory or whatever, and thanks from the Empress, and now it's his turn to go get that bread, go get that cash money, So we'll see what he gets. We'll see what he gets from the Empress. Oh my god, this 10-year-old?
何をしている徳マイレ。
はい。
ファルマよ。そなたには見習いから正式な
He's
宮
so...
廷
Oh my
薬
god,
師
he's
へ
out
の
of his
昇格を
depth.
許す。
Yep.
何をしているファルマ、陛下に誓いを。
光栄にございます。
So we'll see what she gives him first, and then I'll talk
さ
about
あ
it.
ファルマ、宮廷薬師のバッジを。
良いのでしょうか、父上。
それだけではないぞ、ファルマよ。合わせて特別に帝都での薬局開業も許可する。
Pretty good. I mean, that's what he wanted,
元
right?
帝
So.
国のため、今後も励めよ。
Also, the Empress is such like an One-sama now. Holy crap. What a glow up. Oh.
おめでとう、我が子よ。
Alrighty.
はい、
So we'll pause it there.
ありがとう。
Yeah. Good on you, buddy. Okay, so the first thing he gets... So, Farmer, I permit your promotion from apprentice to official royal pharmacist. Because, of course, there's magic. So, they have a pharmacist title. So, for pharmacists, you do your degree. This is like Australia-specific kind of. So, because I don't know what they do in the US or whatever. So, Australia-specific, you do your 4-year degree, or Bachelor of Pharmacy in my case. You could do a master's as well. So you do your uni degree, however long that takes. Then you have to do 1 year of internship, which is a supervised practice essentially. So you've done your degree, and now you have to go work in like a community pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy or something like that. For 1 year under supervision from a regular registered pharmacist, and you have to take a couple of exams. So there's 2 exams that you have to do before you can... Two two exams that you have to do before you can become a pharmacist. Once you're an intern, you need to do a written exam and an oral exam. Both exams are pretty brutal. The written exam is open book, technically speaking, like you can bring in resources and stuff. It's a 3-hour long exam done on a computer, and there's 4 sections to it. When I took it, I think, now I'm really racking my brain because it's been a while. But essentially it goes through your medication knowledge, your knowledge of the law, especially about dispensing medications, your sort of ethics as well. And I think there's a 4th section, I can't remember what it is. So medication knowledge, it's probably like, I want to say it's theory, like the pharmaceutical theory and stuff like that, but I'm not 100% sure. This is probably already changed since I took the exams as well. But yeah, so medication knowledge, law knowledge, and ethics knowledge, and probably something to do with like body knowledge and stuff like that. So that's a 3-hour written exam. Essentially, it's all multiple choice, I believe, when I took it, because you're just on a computer screen. It's not really written, but you just choose options A through D, and you have to get pretty high marks in it to be able to pass. I believe it's 75% overall and no less than 80 in each section. Those percentages might have changed or might be completely wrong, but I know that there is some threshold for each section and then the exam overall. And then you have to do your oral exam, which is typically after you've done your written. The oral exam has changed. I know it's changed since I did it. They've taken one of the sections away from it, which is, I think, a good thing. So there were 3 sections when I did it. The first one was medication knowledge, where they would just give you there's 2 judges, or judges essentially, or assessors, whatever you want to call it. 2 or 3 of them, and they tell you a random list of 10 medications from throughout the Australian Medicines Handbook, or AMH. And you have to be able to tell them as much as you know about those drugs. It lasts for 20 minutes, so roughly you should be able to say 2 minutes worth of knowledge for each medication. Some of them will be like really common. So say, for example, like atorvastatin, which is a statin medication which is meant to lower cholesterol. How does it do that? Well, it lowers LDL in the body and tries to keep HDL up as much as it can. Brand names include Lipitor, etc., etc. And you just kind of ramble on as long as you can to like, yep, okay, you know what that is. Let's move on to the next medication. And you get 10 of them. So it could be like, I don't know, atorvastatin and amlodipine, which are all like blood pressure, which is a blood pressure thing. Telmisartan, which is another blood pressure thing. Amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic. And then they'll usually throw in like 1 or 2 less common medications. So, you know, you might get all these things, pantoprazole, and then they might throw in like rifampicin, for example, for tuberculosis, right? Or they might throw in oseltamivir. Oseltamivir? I might be saying that wrong. But the Tamiflu, which is meant for influenza, is an antiviral for influenza. Stuff like that, right? So that's your first section, which is pretty grueling because you don't know what they're going to give you, and it's just 10 randomly, right? And if you don't remember stuff, you have to kind of think of on the spot, be like, well, I don't know exactly what it is or much information about it. I know roughly where I would find it in the AMH, and I know where to go for, you know, better information about it. So you at least show that you have the skills in order to find information quickly about it and you know, not be a screw up, essentially, right? Which sometimes is more important. If you know that, you know, a certain medication is like an antibiotic or something like that, or is used in a particular cancer regimen, you might not be necessarily familiar down to a T about it, but, you know, I need to go look into the therapeutic guidelines for, you know, for leukemia or something like that to find more information about the medication and things like that. So Yeah, that's your first section for your oral exam, and that section I know they took out because they were just finding that knowing that kind of medication knowledge off the top of your head was probably not the most important thing. And I will stress that this oral exam is open book, technically speaking. The first part, that first medication knowledge part, was not though. You just had to rattle it off from the top of your head. So yeah, first part was medication knowledge. Second part was it was a so second part was a primary health condition. So what I mean by primary health condition, I might be remembering the terminology wrong. Forgive me, it's been a while. But primary health condition is a condition that a customer or a patient walks into, your pharmacy and is like, hey, my baby has like an earache, for example, or my 15-year-old teenager has like a cold, or like comes in with like a sprained ankle or a sprained wrist or something like that, and is like, or some sort of minor injury, and is like, hey, I need something to address this injury. So a primary health condition is something that you can address in the pharmacy without having to refer on to another healthcare professional. So one of the judges will act out as the patient and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I am such and such years old, I've been having diarrhea for the past 24 hours or 8 hours or whatever, and I need to get on a plane, for example, very soon, and I can't afford having this diarrhea. What would you recommend? And you were expected to be able to diagnose the issue, determine that the issue doesn't need any further referral, that there are no red flags for that particular condition, and then recommend a product. Or recommend several products, as the case may be. So if it was something for like diarrhea, you'd be like, well, do you have any other symptoms? Is there any blood in your stool? Is there any vomiting? What did you eat? Do you know roughly when it started? Are you on any other medications? Do you have any allergies? If it's a lady, are you pregnant or breastfeeding? And then, they'll answer accordingly. And then you'll be like, well, if you need to stop the diarrhea immediately, I would recommend Imodium or Gastrostop or something like that. That will, stop your stomach virtually from moving, essentially. So then you don't have the urge to have to go to the bathroom. But if you can help it, if it's been like a foodborne infection or like gastroenteritis or something like that, I would recommend a different product like kind of Gastrolite or something like that, where you would just kind of try to let the diarrhea run its course, because the faster you get the bacteria out of your system, the faster your diarrhea will resolve. Compared to if you did take the Gastrostop or the Imodium, you aren't technically stopping the diarrhea. Well, you are stopping the diarrhea, you're stopping the symptoms. You're not stopping the actual cause of the diarrhea itself. And obviously, if there are any red flags, like the length of the diarrhea, if it's been more than 48 hours in an adult or 24 in a child, if there's blood in the stool, especially if they go to the bathroom and they're like, I'm bleeding, not a great idea, should probably go to the hospital, that's pretty bad. Or if they're vomiting up what looks like coffee grounds as well, so like dark red or dark brownish, what's the word? Like granular vomit, that's pretty bad as well, because that means they have some sort of internal bleeding somewhere in their gastrointestinal tract. So yeah, that's part 2 of your intern oral exam. Part 3 is a ethics or /law section or question or conundrum. So, for example, like some lady comes in late at night at 10 p.m. She's not a regular of your pharmacy, and she says, hi, I know this is probably not the best time, but my boyfriend, he's trying to, he's like a, what's the word? Like he's like a diabetic or something, and he needs such and such insulin. I don't have a script for it. I don't have a valid script for it. I have this, expired script from a while ago from my boyfriend. Is there anything you can do for him? And you don't know the lady, you don't know the boyfriend, they're like from out of town or something. And your insulin, and the insulin he needs is something that is very specific to the dosage. And you don't know if this particular expired script from, let's say months or years ago is of his current dosage, right? So you have no idea about the safety for this person, about whether it's an efficacious medication for him, if he, truly needs it, if he's on a different insulin, that is also possible. If this lady is telling the truth, maybe she's trying to divert supply of insulin for, whatever reason. There was a diabetes medication that does get used off-label for weight loss as well. Like, is that what this lady is trying to do? So the part 3 of the intern exam is examining how the intern pharmacist will react to such a situation and whether they can ethically and lawfully provide the best medical care for their patients. In this particular case, you'd probably say, hey, look, I don't really know your boyfriend. I don't know you. I can't in good conscience supply insulin that I don't know myself is a safe and efficacious supply, nor has he looks like it's seen a GP or a doctor that I can consult with at this time because it's late at night, for example. I would recommend you go to the nearest hospital and see if you can sort out your situation there, because then they can have doctors assess you and make sure that you get the right insulin for you. That would probably be my response. People in the comments can grade me on that. But yeah, essentially that would probably be my response in that case, because you have no record of this patient. You have no idea. You can't examine him. He's not in the pharmacy or anything, and the lady's just a secondhand opinion at this point. So that's probably what I would say. So that's part 3. And in part 2 and 3, you can look up resources. Well, obviously, the more time you take, the whole exam is time. The more time you take for each section, you may run into the time limit, because you do have a time limit to give an answer, or a satisfactory answer to the best of your knowledge. Part 4 is you are given an actual scenario, a patient scenario, about a certain script or medication, and you're given a patient history, and you're asked to role play it and decide whether you dispense the medication or not. There have been instances where the exam writers have been very sneaky and not put anything wrong with it. It's very, very rare. Usually, most of the time, they put something that's obviously wrong in the patient history, or when you counsel the patient or question the patient about what they're doing with the medication, or when you talk to the doctor about stuff. Usually, there's something there that kind of tweaks you onto, hey, something's not right here. I need to change something about the description or talk to the prescriber or things like that. Those situations, those scenarios can vary, super widely between, like, maybe a lady comes in for, like, contraception, for example, just like the pill, and you find out that, she's never had the pill before, or maybe she's switched from a different pill that used to give her, really bad side effects about hormones and things like that, and you need to walk her through more about the side effect profile and things like that. Or maybe you need to talk to her about other contraception options. Maybe it's another doctor coming to you with a script for one of his patients, and he's like, hey, this is a cancer patient. He's also got asthma. He's on this. I need to know what kind of dosage I can give him, IV to, induce his cancer into remission. That's another scenario that could happen. So, as you can see, these intern exams are quite in depth. I don't think if you just treated tuberculosis in a queen would get you there. these days, because there are regimens and knowledge about that. But I don't doubt that in this particular society that you could probably get from apprentice to official royal pharmacist just from curing Her Majesty. So that's the one
兵士へ
thing.
の昇格を許す。
And he's like, oh my
何
god,
を
what a
しているファル
promotion!
マ。陛下に誓いを。
光栄にございます。
さあファルマ、宮廷薬師のバッジを。
So, as a pharmacist, you do get certain things as a pharmacist. Mostly it's like membership in particular professional organizations and things like that. Obviously there's the pharmacist coat, the one that kind of buttons down kind of your right kind of torso, which is always pretty cool. And yeah, you'll gain membership to the pharmacy guild if you need to and things like that, or pharmaceutical society, stuff like that.
良いのでしょうか。
We don't wear badges that say we're pharmacists though. unless we're in a community pharmacy and it's like, hi, I'm so and so, I am the pharmacist. There is actually one thing about a community pharmacy in Australia is that there does need to be displayed somewhere in public view the names of the pharmacist in charge and any other pharmacists that are in the store at that time, or that day or whatever, just to give the public the knowledge about who they're speaking to, and they can find out themselves whether they're qualified through searching opera for our names and our opera numbers.
父上。
それだけではないぞ、ファルマよ。
And the
合わ
last
せて
thing.
特別に帝都での薬局開業も許可する。世と帝国のため、今後も励めよ。
Yeah, so he gets special permission to open a pharmacy in the city. So in Australia, there's this whole big thing about pharmacy location rules and things like that. I won't go into too much detail about it, but essentially it's very freaking hard to open a new pharmacy nowadays in any populated areas, because there are certain location rules that you have to abide by about new pharmacies, and where in relative to other pharmacies, new pharmacies can be put or built, and you know, if you inherit or you buy an existing license that's for a pharmacy that's already exists, there's certain ways of you can move that pharmacy from certain locations and things like that. So it gets into a whole mess. And honestly, for a lot of community pharmacists, it's pretty hard to be able to get to the stage of owning your own pharmacy. It is definitely a lot more doable in rural areas, and you definitely do earn a lot more money. And if you want to devote yourself to that kind of lifestyle and those patients, then, you know, all power to you. So yeah, this kind of special permission to develop a pharmacy or build a pharmacy in the city, it's almost pretty pretty similar to the modern day, depending on where you live. Alright, so we'll quickly move on from here to the next part. Okay, so now he's getting to do his thing. He's getting to build his pharmacy.
皇帝陛下の直命。
We'll see what he says.
今日から工事に取り掛かるようにと。
そんな、ちょっと待ってよ。まだ心の準備も何も。
そうは言われましてもね、若さん。大工に石工、遍歴
They have to build today.
もう全員集まって
It has to happen.
ご指示をいただけねえとこっちも困るんでさ。ご安心ください。どいつもこいつも腕は宮廷御用達の超一流なんで。
We have to start now.
そういうもの
Okay.
じゃなくてね。
帝都の一等地はもう確保してあるんでさよ。早く図面を指示してください。
俺が決めるの？
So, yes, you do get a choice as a pharmacist, as the owner, pharmacist owner, whatever you want to call it, to build your own pharmacy however you like. There are, however, very strict rules about the structure of a pharmacy. that must be followed. For example, in Australia, there are Schedule 2, Schedule 3, and Schedule 4 medications. Schedule 2 medications are called pharmacy medications, and they can be put, they should be put close to the dispensary so the pharmacist can have a look at it, but the public can come and grab it and not have to deal with anyone to be able to get it. They just need to be close to a pharmacist in case they need any advice, or so the pharmacist can see if there's anything weird going on. Schedule 3 medications are called pharmacist-only medications. These are medications where you have to speak to a pharmacist in order to be able to obtain it. So these need to be kept outside of public access and in the dispensary, presumably behind the pharmacist. You can still get these over the counter, but you can't just pick them up. You have to talk to a pharmacist and ask for it. And theoretically speaking, that pharmacist then will question you on why you need it and determine if that's the best product for you, because there might be something else that's better. Schedule 3 medications obviously tend to come with a little bit higher of a risk profile than necessarily Schedule 2 medications, but not so much that the pharmacist can't, assess and diagnose the patient and be able to recommend a product. Schedule 4 medications are prescription medications, which obviously must be kept out of public access, and they must be kept in a part of the pharmacy that is secure. And these are obviously things that you need a script for. Sometimes they may include Schedule 3 medications, but in a higher quantity, for example. Or, they're just completely like their own script medications and things like that. There is another schedule of medications called Schedule 8, which is controlled substances. So these things need to be kept in a safe, out of public access with a code, and the safe needs to be embedded in the stonework or the foundations of the pharmacy in a certain way, so then you can't just pull out the safe, things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of rules and regulations about building a pharmacy and how products in the pharmacy may be stored and presented for customers or patients. So yeah, that's just a little bit of thing. Otherwise, apart from that, as long as you keep within those rules, you can pretty much make the pharmacy however you want. There is sort of a new form of pharmacy that's been sticking. It's been a few years now since the concept first came out, called forward dispensing pharmacies. So this is the point where, the pharmacist, instead of like being behind in like a separate dispensary or things like that, the pharmacist may be instead kind of outside, almost on the floor at their own counter, where you can come up and talk to them about things and put in your script and things like that, and have a real consultation almost with the pharmacist. And then all the actual dispensing and labeling and compounding, things like that, happens sort of in a back office or things like that, which are then brought out to the pharmacist as they need it for particular patients. Or there's sometimes another concept where the pharmacist roams the floor and pulls in scripts from patients or customers on the floor. So then the pharmacist is always engaging with customers, and customers are getting the best medical information they can. So there's a lot of different ways you can play around with the layout of a pharmacy, as long as you keep in with those particular rules. And of course, those rules are public, because you can probably look it up somewhere about pharmacy layout rules and things like that.
もう来たのね。さすが仕事が早い。エレン、どうしたの？
Is this when he begins his pharmacy harem? Now all the girls start coming out to help him out, because of course this is an isekai still, so he needs to still appeal to the male gaze.
できれば他の薬局とかも見てゆっくり考えたいんだけど。
それはダメっす。すぐに始めねえとわしらの首がすっ飛んじまいます。
Oh no. Alright, so we'll move on from there. I think that's about all I can really talk about there. As he draws up his pharmacy. Oh, yeah, I will say that hang on. So here he says, his...
いつかささやかな店を作ること。
Yeah, his dream was to start a little pharmacy of his own one day. I wonder what happened to the little sister. What happened to the little sister curing tumors and stuff like that? His whole medical research type thing. I guess, it's been at least 6 months. He's probably figured that he's stuck here for good, and he wants to revolutionize medicine in this particular world. And, I can't blame him for it. You have to start from somewhere, right? And the goal of creating a pharmaceutical system or a medical industry that exists to be able to provide safe, efficacious, and inexpensive medications for all the people that need them is not a bad goal. And I would like to say, or like to think that today's pharmaceutical industry is largely trying to fulfill that goal as well. Obviously, there are some bad actors, as there are in any industry. But having worked in, both community pharmacy, a little bit of dabbling in human hospital pharmacy, and now working in clinical research, a lot of the people on the ground do care about patients and about treatment and making sure that the best information and cutting edge medical technology is used to the best of our abilities. So, yeah, I think that's a fine goal. I just wonder what happened to his whole researching for his little sister bit. Okay, moving on from there. I think this is now he's built his pharmacy. He's got his storefront up as Isekai Yakkyoku Parallel World Pharmacy. And now I think he's meeting the Pharmaceutical Guild or Pharmacist Guild, maybe? Guild of Pharmaceutists, the representative.
君はここの従業員かな。店主殿はどちらに？
店主は私です。何かご用で？
これは失礼。帝国薬師ギルド長ベロンと申します。以後お見知りおきを。
宮廷薬師ファルマドメディシスです。よろしくお願いいたします。
大層ご立派な店名ですが、どのような薬を販売なさるおつもりで？あなたのお年頃なら差し詰め飴玉といったところですかな。
ちょっとあんた。そうですね。飴玉に近い剤系トローチなんかは売りますよ。
財形とはよくお勉強をしておられますな。感心感心。
恐縮です。一つ確認させていただきたいのですが、創業には薬師ギルドへ加盟しなければなりませんか？
あいにくですが貴族の方々の登録は受け付けておりません。我々平民の薬師のみです。どうしても加盟なさりたければお受けしますが。
いいえ、せっかくですが。
でしょうな。高貴な方々と我々とではやり方が違いましょう。
Okay, so there's a little bit of class stuff going on.
春品揃えの店になりそうですな。
いや、安い価格で提供できると思いますよ。
Farmer's handling it pretty well, to be honest.
安いだと？あんた方の言う安いが庶民にとってどれほどの？
はいはい、それまで。さっきから聞いてれば子供相手にこの店をぶっ潰したいならはっきりおっしゃい。私が相手になってあげる。いえい
え、私はご挨拶に伺ったまででして、以後お互いよろしくやりましょう。ではこれで。
Yeah, so the Pharmacy Guild does exist. There's a Pharmacy Guild of Australia. There probably are of other places. The Pharmacy Guild of Australia primarily represents pharmacist owners, not necessarily employee pharmacists. Now, the relationship between the Pharmacy Guild and other pharmacists is generally not that hostile, and obviously not that classist anymore. I can't speak for in olden days, but the Pharmacy Guild has kind of largely remained the same, and they advocate primarily for pharmacy business and how pharmacy owners can look after their businesses and look after their patients most effectively, without endangering their patient safety, of course. So, yeah, the guilds of pharmacists still do exist. Whether the relationship between the pharmacy guild and kind of the medical profession is a good relationship can be strenuous at sometimes, or tenuous, sometimes. But generally, we're okay. And as I said, the pharmacy guild doesn't necessarily represent employee pharmacists, who are the ones that are actually working in the stores and things like that. So relationships between pharmacy owners and employee pharmacists can sometimes get, a little bit strained, as it always is in labor, kind of in labor positions and things like that. So yeah, this kind of interaction obviously is not as hostile necessarily to new pharmacies, things like that. You do need to join the pharmacy guild, I believe, to open a new pharmacy, but I might be wrong, obviously, because I don't own a pharmacy myself, so I don't necessarily know it. But I don't see a reason why you wouldn't join the pharmacy guild nowadays if you were operating your own pharmacy. The pharmacy guild has a lot of resources, even for employee pharmacists, about continuing education or professional development, however way you want to put it. So yeah, the pharmacy guild is not out there to hurt any pharmacists or repress patient safety or patients' quality use of medicines or patients' access. They're just looking out to make sure that pharmacists still get a fair shake of the old source bottle, as one of our former prime ministers have said. Whether that is a fair shake of the old source bottle for pharmacists that are not their members is a different discussion, and I'm not going to get into that because that is politics that I'm no longer part of, because I kind of left retail pharmacy basically for good. So yeah, pharmacy guild still exists, and for the most part they do good things, I would think.
よろしくなんてされなくてもいいわよ。おとといおいで。
道具の方はこれで大丈夫かな。
そうね、一通りは揃ったわ。
調剤や販売、接客は俺たちがやるからいいとして、経理はどうするかな。
Yeah, so a pharmacy is still a retail business. You still need to be able to keep the business afloat. So you still have the same sort of responsibilities and obligations that you do if you're running a regular store. Still need to be able to keep on top of accounting, make sure you're pulling a decent profit without ripping off your patients or things like that. It does obviously get better if you're part of a chain, because you have larger purchasing power as a group rather than necessarily as an individual pharmacy. So that's why, especially nowadays, a lot of pharmacies tend to be part of a chain, because it lowers their costs and increases profits for those individual pharmacist owners. So, that's just a fact of life, right? That's just economies of scale, again. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations when you open a retail pharmacy, and trying to take care of both patients and yourselves financially as much as you can. I think that's about it for this particular episode. I do find it funny that he says she's only 9 years old, that Lotte is only 9 years old, and he's only 10.
従業員は成人でないと。
そんなこと言ったらフォルマ様だって10歳じゃないですか。
And now that we've established that he's 10, this pharmacy harem's probably a bit yikes, but it's anime at this point. It's probably gonna happen. I mean, he's 10 in body, but not in mind, I suppose. I don't think that makes it any better. But anyway, here we are.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything else I can really comment on. I do know there's a little bit at the end about Bruno. Yeah, his name was Bruno. Being let go on his knees. We'll probably see more of that diagnosis and treatment next episode. Don't think there was really that much that I could necessarily comment on this episode or this week. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was pretty in-depth about not just the kind of science side of pharmacy this week, but a lot of more about the more practical aspects of operating a pharmacy, of becoming a pharmacist, things like that. So I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, I've covered episodes 1 through 3 in the past 3 weeks, and I've also done another pharmacy isekai last year, I believe. So you can check that out. That's all in the playlist. If you're also a fan of anime in general, I do have a series of shorts about I think it was 2 seasons worth of anime, and also a couple guides about tourism in Japan and things like that. So I hope you stick around, and I will see you next week for another episode of Parallel World Isekai, or Parallel World Pharmacy. Whoops. See ya.